Hello and welcome to the Sydney Opera House, where we are actually here sitting on the stage of the Joan Sutherland Theatre. Of course the whole theatre is empty, which is weird and also kind of beautiful. But I'm so happy to be back here in this building after an extraordinary and very strange period that we're still going through, of course, to present the beginning of this season From Our House to Yours, where we are going to be bringing you music and cabaret and all sorts of different theatre and, of course, talks right here live from the stage. So today we're having the first of what will be a series of talks and ideas events called Thinking Through a Crisis, where we try and make some sense out of this major global event that we're all living through and reflect on how COVID-19 has affected all aspects of our lives and of our world. And I'd like to acknowledge that we're here on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pandemic or not, it always has been and always will be Aboriginal land. I'll pay my respects to elders and to all First Nations people that might be watching today. My name's Edwina Throsby and I run the Talks and Ideas program here, and I'm extremely pleased to be joined today by the wonderful writer and best-selling novelist Charlotte Wood. Charlotte, you've won pretty much all of the awards for books, which include The Natural Way of Things and most recently The Weekend. So Charlotte, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's kind of exciting to be in this amazing building. It always is, but in this eerie, strange way, it's kind of cool.
It really is. And even just preparing to be here was quite a thing. I don't know, it took me a good 15 minutes to find my makeup bag.
We've all lost our usual routines, right?
Yeah.
Ways of just going about our lives.
Yeah, shoes. I feel like I need to preface this conversation by acknowledging generally that we're here to talk about our responses to COVID-19 and the coronavirus issue. But we're coming from quite a lucky place. You know, we live in Australia, which has got on top of this quite quickly. We're recording, like we're here today at a point where restrictions are beginning to be eased, where people are seeing each other. You know, we haven't lost our jobs. We both have homes to self-isolate in. So unlike a lot of people around the world, we're doing okay. But at the same time, we have also gone through a period that has been almost unprecedentedly global. You know, I mean, it's an experience, and being in lockdown, which the vast majority of the world has been, has given us all a similar set of problems and a similar set of circumstances and a similar set of things to talk about. So I'm interested in kind of talking with you today about the space that we've had and what might have come out of this. I mean, how's the experience been for you? How have the last sort of several weeks been?
Well, very up and down, really, especially at the beginning. As you say, you know, I'm one of the very lucky ones who have a safe home. I don't have any. I'm a writer. My job is always precarious. It's not actually any more precarious, despite the gazillion cancellations. And I feel that all the time, how lucky we've been. And yet, at the same time, it's been very destabilising. My partner's business is very badly affected. But it's more a sort of internal destabilisation, really, than the external factors for me that, you can measure them and count them, which are income going down, that sort of stuff. Don't really account for the kind of sort of turmoil that I had at the beginning, and that has now been replaced by a sort of, a sense of coming to some more resolved feelings about it, I guess. But there was a sort of sense of, just panic that was then manifested in having to rush around filling up the time with meaningful activities. So, Zooming till I'm blue in the face, basically. I think we're all, now we're all hearing about the Zoom fatigue and how that actually is quite exhausting. But also, the baking. I haven't actually started making sourdough bread, but only because if I did, I'd be eating a loaf of bread a day, which I would love. But but I've been doing a lot of cooking and gardening and all that. And, some of that's been beautiful. But I guess I was sort of interested in looking at, are we, people like me, rushing around consuming stuff in the same way that I might sort of sneer at somebody else for consuming, material things, but it's the same kind of panicky impulse. And that
to know all the things, to read all the things.
To read all the books and watch all the meaningful TV things and, watch all the moving tributes on Facebook and... but also do my yoga, do my Pilates, go for a walk. And that's all apart from disinfecting everything every 10 seconds. And so there was a sort of rushing of activity to stave off a feeling of what happens when we go still, because I think that really fills us with panic in our culture.
But there is this sort of sense that we should be behaving in a certain way, or we should be responding to this in a certain way, and which is about using the time,
Yeah, well, and as a writer, I think a lot of us in the beginning felt that, well, this is what I do anyway. This is how I live my life normally. I'm already in social isolation because I work at home in my own office. I'm in my own head, but still, I know a lot of people just felt very, it was frightening, especially at the beginning, and still is around the world, absolutely terrifying. So there was that kind of fear of, what does this mean? Are people we love going to die? And, that's serious. So it was very hard to focus on going back to work. But over time, I think a lot of us have just sort of calmed down and managed to just go back into our creative spaces in our heads.
See, I would have thought that being a writer would give you a sort of superpower to deal with all of this, because not only are you now able to stay at home, which, as you say, is a state of being in a state of working that you're incredibly familiar with. I mean, it is your job.
Yeah.
But also, there must be a huge amount of kind of fodder for writerly interest, looking around how people are responding to this.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a response from the kind of publishing world, or the magazine, newspaper-y publishing world, which is, tell us how you're coping in the pandemic, and what are you reading in the pandemic, and what are you writing in the pandemic, and suddenly bits of money being offered to writers to respond to the pandemic. It's like, just give writers money to write their books. That would be the best response to the pandemic, I think.
Are we going to see a rush of pandemic novels after this?
Well, I mean, I hope not, in a way, because I feel like something like this takes a long time to understand what's happened. And again, I guess that's part of the rushing that I was talking about before, this sort of... I mean, I think it would be really great for all of us to really think about, what has this meant for me and my family or my household, or what has it told me about myself? And I'm sort of in that mode now. When you're lucky, like I've been, it's actually very precious to think, we have never seen something like this in our lives, and what does it mean? How is it going to change us? I feel like it should change us. If it doesn't change us, then I think there's something wrong.
You've written a lot about the idea of an inner life, and I feel like that is something that we've all had to confront, throughout this. We've all been spending a lot more time alone. There's been a lot less stimulus in one sense. And I wonder what that has shifted in the way that we view our kind of inner life. I mean, what do you mean by inner life?
Yeah, well, what do we mean? Like, it's a question, isn't it? What we sort of say it as if we all know what it means. But when I sat down to write a piece about it, and I thought, what is it? What is the inner life? And I guess the conclusion I came to was that for me as a writer, as an artist, I would think of myself, it's my creative mind, I suppose. And that doesn't mean that non-artists don't have an inner life, but I guess it's, to me, having a concept of the mind as a place, as a precious thing, is the beginning of having a rich inner life. So feeling that your mind, as opposed to your brain, is a place to go and explore things, is a spacious place, is a place of curiosity and sort of slow thinking and exploration, but also an expansive space, a space that has a lot of freedom. And so for artists, I think, and for writers, we are used to going to that place. That's where we live, in our working hours. And that does allow us, I think, sort of maybe just less fearful access to it.
So access to this sort of almost physical space of the mind.
Yeah, to an imaginative space. I do. Sometimes I see it as, it sounds sort of a bit hokey, but as a garden or as a sort of a wild space of where things grow and things move and change. And I guess that's different in my mind from thinking about the brain, which is, when I use that word, I think of it more as a kind of processor or
an engine.
So, and I guess the inner life concept for me is about a quiet space and a space that you have to go and sort of sometimes sort of wait for things to make sense and wait for meaning to come, and you have to look for it. So it's sort of active but also quiet, if that can make any sense.
Yeah. So now you're in a period, as we are, where we have this space and we have this time to go and visit this. Has your cognitive function changed much? I've personally, particularly at the beginning, found it very hard to settle into any kind of serious, sustained thinking. I was incapable of reading a novel, but able to read, literally thousands of articles about the effect of COVID-19, and kind of maintaining a sort of, steady mental course was just blown up. You know. Did you have a similar experience, or have you found
I did in that
sort
of panic phase of just, because you did want to know what should you be doing, what shouldn't you be doing, and all of that. But once I went back to work on my book, all of that just, it was almost like, I don't know, going underwater or something, when all the noise just recedes and falls into the background and there is focus. And I was really concerned that I wouldn't be able to focus at all. And I do think for lots of people, especially, lots of writers and artists who had got kids to homeschool now as well, that, it's not going to be available to lots of people. But it was kind of amazing to me to just see again what I've always known, and it drives me nuts that I have to discover it all the time, which is that attending to the work will bring its own rewards. It's not, I can't wait to calm down and get some focus and then go to the work.
And when you say go to the work, you mean go to your writing desk and sitting down and writing?
Yeah, and turning off the email, leaving the phone in the other room, stepping way back from social media, which totally fans all that kind of panicky, rushy stuff. And just going inward, instead of looking around the outside world, especially the media, for reassurance or meaning or, anything, to just go into the imaginative space for me as a novelist, and start just doing what I've always done, but it sort of was easy to forget how to do that this time.
Yeah.
But, it's sort of, I think a lot of writers feel this, that they've sort of, when there's some sort of malaise, they think, I can't write. And the only cure for the malaise is writing. But you sort of have to learn it every time. It just drives us nuts.
Maybe it's like you sometimes have to remind yourself that physical exercise makes you feel better, and if you get up and get out and go for the run or whatever.
I'm too tired to go for a run, but if you go for the run, you won't be tired.
Yeah, that's it.
It is the same kind of thing. And it is, I think that it's also like a muscle, the more you attend to the imagination, the quicker is the dive into it and the absorption and the, that beautiful immersion that is why you do it in the first place.
You were writing about, all the social media distraction. Sorry, You were just talking about all the social media distraction and all of that we have to deal with. And one of the things that it's occurred to me is that, you know, for years now, there's been this huge sort of virtue around busyness. You know, like you run into, how have you been? So busy. And, you know, I'd love to, I'm so busy. And this kind of idea that the busier you are, the more worthwhile you are, and the more kind of, you know, important you are, or, you know, those sorts of things. And it really feels like this whole experience has taken that idea and just gone, nah, you know, like really, you have to strip that from your kind of mental vocabulary. And one of the things I think that that's forced a lot of people to do is confront their own inner lives, right?
Which they see as a kind of emptiness, I think.
Right.
Because when you're not filling it up with busy stuff, and you know, I'm as prone to that as anybody. You think, oh, people are just trying to distract me. I can't be distracted, and then you're thinking, oh, no one's distracting me. What am I going to do? You know. But I think that busy, the sort of virtue of being busy thing is really rampant, and you know, there's a kind of vanity or a slightly self-aggrandizing thing in it, which means I'm so busy because people want me to do so many things. I'm so in demand, you know. So yes, when you're not in demand, then what? And I think there is a kind of we're very afraid of stillness. We're very afraid of silence. We're afraid, I don't know, maybe we're afraid that if we stop and sort of go inward, there's nothing there.
Or what you find is terrifying.
Yeah, or what you find is terrifying. What is there? But I would suggest that for most people who don't have, you know, for people who don't have serious trauma or something, it's just sort of practice to go. It's like when you learn to meditate, right? I mean, I meditate nearly every morning, and every time I think, I don't want to do it. I can't do it. It's something scary about sitting still and breathing. And I'm really terrible at it, but I still do it. And the more you do it, the less scary it is and everything. But I still don't understand really why we're so afraid of stillness. I mean, I think partly it's because our whole culture, well, capitalism depends on no stillness. You know, it's relentless production and relentless consumption. And that if you're still, you're not buying anything. And that is, you know, must be stopped at all costs. So I think it works, you know, it's not surprising that we are so alarmed when we just stop. I think it would be really lovely if we were conscious of what's happening rather than, you know, I mean, even the, you know, that people who watch a lot of Netflix or whatever, and we talk about binging series. And that sort of binging idea is that relentless consuming thing, I think. So I would love for us to come out of this with more self-awareness and all of that. I suspect that when we can, we'll just go back and fill our lives with all the junk that we normally have. But there are, you know, thoughtful people will be thinking about this now, I think, about what do we want to change, and not just in ourselves, but in our world. We've got, you know, we've just come out of that horrific bushfire time. There is a connection between pandemics and the natural world and what's going to happen there. And I think if we can be thoughtful, just paying attention, as I said before, to the detail of our own self. I would love us to, I mean, the thing about bread, you know, we were joking about the sourdough bread before, but I'm really interested that was such a, people just seized on that immediately. It's so sort of symbolic of something really simple, old-fashioned, it's nourishing, it's not fancy cooking, it's bread making people are going for. I mean, I think sourdough bread making.
I was going to say, if you've ever tried to make sourdough.
But But, it's kind of the old world.
It is, and it also actually takes a long time, a good loaf of sourdough it's a 24-hour cycle, and you have to be attentive to it, and you have
to feed the thing all the time. And I do think that's a really, the inner life needs to be fed and nourished and paid attention to for it to flourish, like a garden. I'm not going to go the bread dough thing, but, I think it's just very interesting that was such a symbol that people needed kind of instantly, and that isn't about fast results. It's not processed. It's not made by somebody else. It's made by me in my kitchen with my family. Although my neighbour brought me a very nice loaf the other day. So
that she'd made or he'd made?
That she'd made. I'm all in favour of other people making sourdough.
I mean, one of the things that I'm wanting to talk about throughout this Thinking Through the Crisis series that we're going to be doing here is this idea of what we want to retain on the other side, like what we can learn from this and what we can carry through. But do you think that's going to be possible? What do you think we need to do in order to ensure that this sort of introspection that we might have developed, or this appreciation of solitude or stillness that we might have gained over this period, is that going to be hard to maintain when things go back to normal? Because I suspect it will be. And if so, then how do we ensure that we do?
Well, I think that's why we need to kind of articulate it now and think about it now in detail, and not just let it pass by without really interrogating what has changed for us. In one sense, in my life, nothing's really changed. In another sense, everything has changed. So what is the detail of the everything? And, I mean, one thing I feel, and I've learned this several times because I'm a writer, basically, is that middle-class people can live on a lot less money than they earn. And I think for a lot of people, the initial panic of, oh my God, my income's halved, have been kind of surprised to understand that actually, if I don't buy this or that, or if I don't go here and there, I can. Anyone who's left a job to study, anyone who's left work or dropped their work to be an artist knows that, and I think we're all really stunned at how much we don't need. So I really hope that is a realisation that helps us, because we need to consume less, in all kinds of ways.
That consideration of the detail that you talk about, I think, is super important. But it is also very much an individual thing, right? How do you think we can... And of course, this has been a period where we've had to become sort of... It's this sort of paradox, as we were saying at the start of the conversation, between these intense alone experiences that we're having, but that's against the backdrop of the knowledge that people all around the world are having parallel, extremely similar experiences.
Yeah, I mean, there is that sense of a kind of renewed connection too, right? So we're all isolated, but then I think there's a lot of us who have been very kind of emotionally labile, seeing health workers talking to each other across the world we've had a sense of connection with people elsewhere in the world that we don't normally have, especially in Australia. The whole kindness pandemic, I mean, that word gets overused, I think, but people are being nice to each other in a way that is a beautiful thing to, try and carry forward. I mean, I think the idea that governments have that we have to snap back afterwards, I think that would be a real loss if we just, and I don't think it's going to happen anyway, it can't happen. It's going to be gradual. But the idea that we want everything to go straight back to the way it was, we don't. We don't want that, because that's kind of what caused this.
So, I mean, there's a lot of talk about the new normal, but what do we want the next new normal to be?
Well, that'll be, a really individual thing, won't it? But
well, kind of, although...
But what I've heard a lot is about people in families with kids talking about the time that they're spending together as a family being kind of beautiful. And you know, even my partner Sean and I just spending a lot of time at home together, alone, reading, or you know, I just last Friday night we were just reading at 9 o'clock at night, which we sort of often do, but it's like, well, this is the 5th Friday in a row we've just, and it was lovely, you know, the stillness, the you know, we had a nice dinner. It was just the stillness. I think if we can choose what we want to do after this, not just go, oh, I've got to go out 3-5 nights a week because someone asked me to go out. Rather think, what do I want to do? Do I want to stay home? Like, we're allowed to like staying home, you know?
Right. The novel that you're working on now is about nuns, right?
Yeah, I mean, the novel I'm working on, which is, you know, about 5,000 words. So when we say novel, the idea, the kind of embryo of what I'm working on. Yes, sorry, go on.
Do you feel like that having to have spent this last period of time in isolation has given you new and improved understanding of your character's inner life or desires?
Well, I have been interested in that there are a few stories, you know, in various magazines online, written by nuns about self-isolating and saying, look, I've been self-isolating for 25 years. Here's how you do it. These are people in sort of enclosed orders, obviously, people who have retreated from the world. And that I am interested in that tension between participating actively in the world and withdrawing from the world. And what's the use of withdrawing from the world, you know, spiritually speaking. But that's actually something I think we are learning is the kind of communal benefit of not doing. You know, the benefit to our planet of restraint, of stillness, of staying away, of not acting in any way. You know, it's a kind of first do no harm principle. And I guess, you know, religious communities of any kind, you know, whether it's a Zen monastery or, you know, a bunch of nuns in a country town, have kind of understood that, the value of withdrawal and restraint. So I guess, you know, the pandemic has maybe brought that to the fore for some of us. I don't know if it's going to help me write the book, but it's been kind of useful in certain ways, sort of narratively already. Yeah.
What is the most important thing about solitude?
It's that it enlarges the creative spirit, I suppose, for me. Solitude and boredom even kind of pushes open the doors into this place I was talking about before. Because without solitude, I can't really go there. I need a certain amount of quietness and solitude to just enter the imagination. I mean, it sounds obvious, really, but it's amazing how much there is to prevent you from going to that space. But solitude is a really kind of crucial tool, I suppose.
And how turning off the stimulus actually creates a wellspring of creativity.
Yeah, and that thing of understanding that solitude opens up a stillness, but it's not a void, you know. It's a well, and it'll fill itself if you are confident enough to just sit with it, to be still. You will find things arising. But if you look at the stillness and think, I need to put stuff in there, then it doesn't have the same benefit, I think.
Well, Charlotte Wood, it has been so nice to sit with you in this very still theatre.
It's amazing to be here. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you so much. I really hope that people who've been watching this at home have been able to think about this really amazing time and maybe find the space to create, to feel more connected and to feel better about being a person that's sharing the same experience with countless millions of other people. So thank you so much for joining us from our house to yours.